A district attorney and state representatives say a major policy change in Nashville is putting the public at risk. Community watchdog Nate Morabito got his hands on that policy, and after weeks of investigation, learned the change means less direct supervision for a group of criminals that once committed vicious crimes. He's live in the studio with the details. Nate?
Kylie, these are people who have served their time, are now back in society on probation and parole, and according to the state's risk assessment tool, are not much of a risk to the public anymore. Instead of spending time and resources checking up on those people all the time, the Tennessee Department of Correction is now focusing most of its resources on people considered high risk. And that has some worried.
It's going to be like the second or third house there.
Sandy Rawls doesn't spend as much time at the office these days.
We are out in the field a lot more than we were before.
Instead, more often than not,
today we're going to be doing some home checks on some of my offenders. It's going to be across the street over here.
The probation officer is out in the community, keeping tabs on people under probation and parole supervision.
We just want to make sure that they're doing okay and that they're complying with their supervision rules.
But these routine home visits are not for everyone.
Any problems or anything?
Under a new policy that went into effect in August, recurring home visits and regular trips to the probation office are now mainly reserved for people considered higher risk offenders. The others who used to routinely check in at the probation office receive much less direct supervision.
We are able to actually kind of reward those offenders in a sense that they don't have to report as often, and it's a win-win situation for all of us.
Not everyone feels that way.
We're lowering the bar of probation, and we're increasing the risk to the public.
Sullivan County District Attorney Barry Staubis says he was outraged when he found out the Tennessee Department of Correction policy lays out a significant shift in supervision standards. For one, the state is offering people on probation and parole more leeway, opting not to throw them in jail when they fail their first 2 drug tests, don't report to their probation or parole officer as required, and fail to meet other basic requirements. Staubis wonders where's the accountability.
I mean, how many bites of the apple do you get? How many dirty drug screens do you get? How many times do you not report to your probation officer?
But that's not the only thing he's mad about. Public records reveal more than 4,300 so-called lower-risk criminals are now on automated phone reporting, twice as many as before. People who check in monthly by leaving a detailed message on an answering machine and then sending in documents to prove they're following the rules and behaving. Offenders who now rarely have to meet their probation officers in person. Who are these low-risk criminals? In Northeast Tennessee alone, the telephone reporting list includes child abusers, arsonists, burglars, and most concerning to Staubis, 14 people convicted of first and second-degree murder.
I think those are high risk individuals.
The prosecutor isn't the only one questioning the change. A local state representative says he is outraged by these new rules, and he plans to take issue with them in Nashville.
We send a really bad message to criminals across the state, which says if you do this, 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 it's really a slap on the wrist. You have to really do something horrible to actually be incarcerated, to go to jail, to go to prison.
Representative John Lumberg says he is also shocked by the changes.
This is out of the bounds of where I think all of us were expecting them to go. So you don't release hardened criminals on probation and say, hey, call in and leave a voicemail.
Lundberg sits on the governor's newly formed sentencing and recidivism task force.
Boy, we're taking a big chance. I think we have opened that door too far.
He plans on sharing his concerns with the entire task force in January.
Because we never should have had this in place.
And we feel this is a much more effective, efficient way of doing that. And we feel that it will, in time, let's give it time, we feel it will truly reduce recidivism.
The Tennessee Department of Correction says the change is based on national studies and models in other states that show increasing supervision for the worst of the worst improves public safety.
It's about applying supervision where it's needed,
while decreasing it for convicts who've proved over a several-month period they can be good law-abiding citizens helps their chances of rehabilitation, even those convicted of murder. Someone is going to say, a first-degree murderer, how can he be low risk? He
took part in a murder.
Because the system is working and they're being successful.
Deputy Commissioner Jason Woodall is convinced this is the best approach for public safety.
We have family in the community as well, and I have children.
And you feel safe with them with this plan?
This plan makes it safer for my children.
But what about the accountability concerns?
I mean, how many chances do you give these people?
We're not in this to be soft on crime or to soft on offenders. I mean, that's not at all what this is about. I don't know how many chances you give someone. I just know that we don't want to do the opposite. We don't want to needlessly place a person under a level of supervision or reincarcerate them if it's going to be counterproductive or less productive.
TDOC considers the longer leash an incentive for people to stay out of trouble. Woodall says if any of these people show they can't follow the rules, the state can and will increase supervision when necessary. He also says probation officers continue to check in with these lower-risk offenders' families, bosses, and neighbors. Despite the criticism, he's convinced people like Representative Lundberg,
I think it would outrage anyone,
and Staubus,
I think that you're putting the public at risk.
will eventually come around.
I welcome the opportunity to meet with Mr. Staubus, and I regret that that's his position on it. But I think after we could meet and we could explain what we're doing, that his opinion would change without a doubt.
So here now lies the other concern. The Department of Correction failed to tell prosecutors and lawmakers that this change was even in the works, so they never got the chance to share their concerns on the front end. Staubus and Lundberg tell me they were blindsided, which make them doubly outraged. So why the lack of communication? Does the state have any regrets about the way it handled rolling this out? We'll have those answers in part 2 of our special report tomorrow night at 6.
Great report. Thanks so much, Nate. We appreciate it.